That just feels good. It feels aligning. It feels good to feel good. So if you can choose something that feels better than that fear mentality, why wouldn't you choose it? And I know it's not always easy, especially with all the stories we have, all the conditioning we have, all the habits we have. We're just so used to being in fear. We're addicted to fear. 1000% our society is addicted to fear. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy a good spooky story every once in a while, but also I love to feel good. I crave feeling good and raising my vibration. Welcome to Alignment Adventures. This is a podcast where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling, aligning, and present life. I'm your host, Lindsay Tanner, and I am so grateful that you are here. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to Alignment Adventures. I'm so excited that you are here. And funny little side note, I've said this before, but today is a day where I'm trying to record as many podcasts as I can. So I just recorded last week's episode, changed my shirt, and here I am. So it's just funny to say that, even though I was just here talking to you all. It's just such an interesting relationship, because I do feel like it's a relationship, even though I don't always hear back from you guys. Like, talking to you in this time and space, and then you receive it whenever it's time for you to receive it. Maybe you're listening to it right as it comes out, or maybe you go back and listen to it, or maybe you're listening to it like 6 months or a year after it came out. Whenever you're listening, it's divine timing. Trust that. I go back and listen all the time. I say that all the time too. And I'm just so happy to be here with you, even though I am just like recording as many as I can, because Arlo is with his Papa T, and I'm just excited. I'm excited to be here, and let's talk about all the things. So today, I want to talk about something that I've had on the queue of Alignment Adventures podcast episodes for a while. And I just kept avoiding it because it's one of those topics that I think is so interesting, and I just wanted to do it justice. But today feels like the day, and we're just going to see what flows. I'm just going to look at my notes a little bit so I remember like the points I want to hit. But also, I love just like flowing with these conversations and seeing where they lead. And who knows where we'll go today, what expansive conversations we will have. And as always, I want to hear back from you. So message me on Instagram, or reply in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or you can comment on Spotify. I want to hear from you, so let me know your thoughts on this topic. But let's talk about this concept that everything in the world, like everything that we feel and everything at its core, is either love or fear. I feel like I've heard this a few times, but I heard it on another podcast Steven and I listen to. We love these YouTubers, Eamon and Beck, and they have a podcast, and we listen to it together sometimes, which is honestly kind of rare to find a show that we both like, just because we have different interests. But anyways, they were talking about this, and I was like, what an interesting concept. Like, let's break this down, because everyone may not believe this, just like with everything I talk about on here, and that's totally okay. Always tune in to what feels right for you. But when I heard this, it kind of blew my mind, and I was like, oh my goodness, like this, it just makes sense. It just makes sense. And then as we dive into it deeper, it just makes it simpler to switch from fear mentality to a love mentality. So let's talk about it just a little bit more. So if you think about a lot of the things that we see today, which we try not to bring too much attention to over here, but I do touch on because I'm a real human living in this reality along with you. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of resentment. Like, the list goes on and on and on. And at their core, those things all stem from fear. What an interesting concept. Even like hatred, like the most unreasonable hatred, like people who are hating people just based on things that they can't even control, right? Like their ethnicity or whatever it is about them. Like, there's so many different types of hate that we see in the world, what they believe in, blah, blah, blah. That hate comes from this rooted belief of like the fear of what that person may do or what they think they might do, right? Because we all have these stories in our mind. Like we've just picked up these stories to give us the fear about what certain things may do, or like what events may happen. Like watching the news, you have a fear of everything, like a fear of going into a shopping mall or to the grocery store, or just like being a human in this time and space. I get it. Those are legitimate fears. But all those other like low vibe emotions, like resentment and judgment and anger, are rooted from fear. And it's just like such an interesting concept for me to like ponder. And it just makes me think about how so many people choose to live in fear, because that's a choice. That is a choice to like feed into that fear. Now, I've talked about this many, many, many times on here. It doesn't mean like you're avoidant of all things. You're not aware of like the suffering going on in the world, but you don't have to feed into that fear mentality. You don't have to be in those fearful emotions and energies all the time. So the opposite of that, things like connection, peace, happiness, joy, alignment, presence, compassion, freedom, connection. I may have already said connection. Those are all rooted in love. So it's like we've got two sides of the coin here. We either choose fear or we choose love. And thinking about life this way just really, like I said before, simplifies it for me. And I feel like in those situations where we are feeling the heavy emotions like anger, resentment, jealousy, comparison, whatever, how can you switch the lens from fear to love? As always, acknowledge what you're feeling. Acknowledge it, identify it. That is key. That is so, so, so important. Otherwise, you could just get lost in it. And then ask yourself, can I see this situation through love? And that sounds so cheesy to say, right? But I think at the core of ourselves and everything in this universe, and I've heard so many spiritual teachers talk about this as well, like everything at its core is love. We just like have this perception of fear. Fear is really just a perception. And it's been built through many different mechanisms to like try to keep us safe. But we've come up with all these crazy stories of things to be fearful of, which leads to so much unnecessary hatred, resentment, judgment, all of those things. When really we can choose to see that situation through love, and that just like puts a whole new spin on something that could be really, really challenging. So I'm not saying it's easy to switch from fear to love, but like it's simple. And I think a lot of things in life are like that. They're not easy and they're simple. Things can be hard to do and also very simple to do. Those two things can exist. And I just encourage you, like, especially with things going on in the world, like homework assignment. I'm not telling you to watch the news, but if you watch the news or if you get caught up in those stories, like, just be curious. Can you see those situations through love? Like, how could we pour love into those situations instead of more fear? Because that's what's happening. We see the storylines play out. We see the things play out, and it's just like fear, 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 fear. What if we started pumping love into those situations? I feel like that is where we would actually find the solutions. I see why so many people are so passionate about sharing their opinions and their thoughts, because like they just see injustices and they want to make it right. I get it. I totally get it. I just feel like if we were able to look at these situations through the lens of love, we might actually be able to come up with some solutions that are going to help all the people involved. It's just so clouded by fear and it just feels so icky. And like that's how I feel when I think about certain situations. I'm like, that just feels so icky and fear-based. Like, I don't know what to do. I know it's not right, but like, how can I help, right? It always comes back to like, what can I control? I can control myself and how I show up. And me showing up with more love and less fear is going to help the world, is going to make this world a better place. Like, I truly believe that. And I think the more times we can all choose love over fear, it's going to drastically not only change our own lives, but like the collective reality that we all share. And I think we're in the process of that. And that's why things seem so crazy, as things are shifting and people are choosing love more and more and more. I choose to believe that. And it just looks kind of crazy, but something I'm going to personally focus on as much as I can, and even like on a small, not really a smaller scale, but a more personal scale. When it comes to parenting, I feel like it can be so easy to choose the fear mindset. Like maybe your child does something and you're like, oh my gosh, if I don't stop this behavior, like they're going to be like a crazy person or whatever it may be. Those are the thoughts parents have sometimes, right? It's fear-based. It's fear-based. Instead of pumping more fear into the situation and to your child, can you show up with love? And again, that's not always easy. Like when they're having their terrible tantrums, or big emotions, especially as toddlers, and you're just trying to get like simple things done, that's not always easy. But I am listening to a book called Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids. I kind of dropped off for a while, but I've gotten back to it. And a huge proponent is just like connecting with your children. Like a lot of misbehavior just comes from that disconnection feeling. So like showering them with love and seeing how that affects how they act, because we can't control them. Like as much as we think we can control our kids or can control the world or can control other people, we can't. We can only control ourselves. So having that mindset of I'm going to choose love as much as I can over fear is just going to change everything. Parenting, the world, all the different aspects that we can think of, like our internal world, our career, our jobs, our other relationships that we have in life. Can we show up with more love and less fear? And drop the idea of love as like this romantic love. Of course it can mean that, but like love is so much more than that. Love is like just indescribable, right? It's the opposite of fear. It's the absence of fear. That is love, right? That connection, joy, just like beyond words feeling. Can we tune into that energy more and more and more in all aspects of our life? Like don't turn away from it just because you like have the romantic idea of love in your head. I don't know. I just feel like some people may think of it that way because that's how we use it most often, right? In like romantic sense or in the sense of our relationships. But it's really just like showing up without fear. Love is showing up without fear. Or maybe you're still feeling the fear. I remember like my dad telling me this before I went on a roller coaster at Six Flags when I was tiny. Like it's just funny the things that stay with you. And he said, being brave doesn't mean you don't have fear. It just means you're doing it anyways. And I think that's true with this like fear versus love aspect. Of course, I do think love is the absence of fear, but also when you're choosing love and you still have fear, it's okay that you still feel fearful. But the more and more you choose to see it through that loving lens, the fear will just get quieter and quieter. I think that's the problem, is fear is so loud, or it can be so loud, depending on what you're tuning into, what you're listening to. It can be so loud, and hopefully this space always encourages you to tune into the love, right? Like, yeah, it's no surprise Lindsay's like a little bit of a hippie over here, right? A little witchy, little hippie, all those things. But they were onto something with like the love mentality. I don't know that much about like the whole hippie movement, but I'm here for choosing love over fear. That just feels good. It feels aligning. It feels good to feel good. So if you can choose something that feels better than that fear mentality, why wouldn't you choose it? And I know it's not always easy, especially with all the stories we have, all the conditioning we have, all the habits we have. We're just so used to being in fear. We're addicted to fear. 1000% our society is addicted to fear. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy a good spooky story every once in a while, but also I love to feel good. I crave feeling good and raising my vibration. So just don't get too caught up in the fear. Fear is an illusion. A lot of people I listen to talk about that as well. Like it's just these stories we have in our head. Like the fear isn't actually real. It's just these stories we've made up, especially when it comes to just like people hating other people for no good reason. Like it's just these things we've been carrying around in our society. And now is the time to release it. We are moving into a new age of love. I feel like this could align with like astrology going on right now, which how perfect. I have my zodiac shirt on right now. I'm not an expert in that by any means, but I have heard that like we're entering a new age. Oh my gosh, the zodiac people may be cringing right now, but I think we're heading out of the age of Aquarius. Oh my gosh, do not quote me, guys, but I've heard esteemed astrologers talk about this. We're heading into a new age where I believe love is going to be more prominent than fear. All right, I'm looking at my notes because I did have notes from this episode, even though I've just been yapping over here about love and fear. I have a few like screenshots from different books I was reading where they kept talking about this. I'm like, oh, this is so good. So I just want to read them to you really quick before we wrap up this conversation. So the first one, I can't remember what book it is from. I want to say it's The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav. I'm going to double check that, and if I'm wrong, I'll put it up on the screen what it's from. But I'm just going to read you a quote from this book really quick. The human emotional system can be broken down into roughly two elements, fear and love. Love is of the soul. Fear is of the personality. The illusion of each personality is generated by and sustained by the emotions that follow fear, such as anger, rage, vengefulness, hatred, jealousy, envy, loneliness, spite, sorrow, grief, despair, regret, greed, lust, arrogance, alienation, self-pity, lethargy, guilt, resentment, and feelings of inferiority and superiority. So he listed off a lot more things than I did for those fear-based emotions. Basically anything low vibe, the opposite of love, right? We all know what that feels like. Emotions such as these lead to corresponding behaviors such as selfishness towards people and animals and the earth and the kingdoms of earth, and using others in many ways that humans use one another, commercially, sexually, emotionally, and lying, manipulation, violence, brutality, impatience, ridicule, and judgment. It's just so interesting because so many of the negative things we see happening in our world are just rooted in fear. They're all based in fear. And that's just such a simple explanation for why we see those things. It's just like there's a lot of fear because sometimes the mind wants an explanation like, why are all these things happening? It's just rooted in fear. A lot of fear is being perpetuated. All right, this next quote is from The Comfort Book by Matthew Haig. I'm not sure how you say his last name. He wrote The Midnight Library, which I'm obsessed with, probably one of my favorite books. But I saw another one of his books, it's more of a nonfiction, at the library, and it's just little like passages that he's written, and it was so cute. So I highly recommend The Comfort Book. It's just like a pre-bedtime little tidbit if you need it. I love books like that where you can just read a little bit before bed each night. But this passage is called, "We have more in common than we think." It's easy to hate everyone these days. It's easy to go on the internet or switch on the news and feel despair. It's easy to find reasons to be angry. We have social media apps whose very business model depends on our ongoing capacity for fury and frustration. It's easy to be surrounded so entirely by a singular view that almost everyone without that view becomes alien. But we can look at the world through more than one lens. It's easy to be surrounded so entirely by a single view that almost anyone else without that view becomes alien. But we can look at the world through more than one lens. If we look at people through the lens of emotion, at the feelings that drive opinions rather than the opinions themselves, it's easy to see the things we share. The hopes, the fears, the loves, the insecurities, the longings, the doubts, the dreams. Other people can be wrong and we can be wrong. And that is another thing we have in common, the capacity for effing up, I'm going to say that differently, and for forgiving. So that's not necessarily about love and fear, but it alludes to that, like all the different varying opinions we see. Oh my goodness, so many different opinions out there and so many passionate opinions. But when you boil it down, everyone's just doing what they think is best. And a lot of it is rooted in fear. They're so passionate about it because they're so fearful of the opposite. So just looking at it through that lens can kind of connect us again, because how disconnected we have become is also very dangerous. So when you come back to that, knowing that we're all like motivated by fear and by love, like it just reminds you of how much we have in common than how much we don't have in common, which for me is a very reassuring feeling. So if you take anything from this conversation, hopefully it's just a reminder that you get to choose which lens you look at your life through and the lens that you look at the world through. And it could be a fearful lens or a loving lens, but you always have the choice. And I truly believe that the more we choose love, the better things are going to get. Like, I have that feeling within myself. I know things seem crazy, but I know things are also getting better. I know it in my soul. And I'm going to keep choosing that belief, and I'm going to keep choosing love as much as I can over fear. So with that, I'm sending you all so much love. Please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Like, this can be such an interesting topic, and if you have things you want to elaborate on, let me know. I'm so curious to hear your opinion. If you are new here, please subscribe on any platform that you are listening to. I appreciate your support so much. You have no idea how much I appreciate you just being here and listening, and also subscribing. And if you haven't left a review yet, you can do that on Apple iTunes or Spotify as well. Just such a beautiful way to support the podcast for free. Like I said before, I'm sending you all so much love. Always, and especially today, all the high vibes. And of course, I will see you in the next episode of Alignment Adventure.